Hey everyone, and welcome back to Kadem. Don't forget to hit that like button, share this deep dive, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Absolutely.
Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into some major shakeups over at MSNBC.
Right.
Specifically, we're going to unpack the cancellation of Joy Reid's show, The ReidOut.
Yeah.
And what it means for the network. To help us break down this media earthquake, we have an expert in media and politics.
It's fascinating to see how this is playing out. This isn't just about one show.
Right.
The ReidOut's viewership dropped by 28% in just a year.
Wow, 28%.
Which is significant even considering the broader trends in cable news. This signals something bigger is going on at MSNBC.
Yeah, I mean, you can't talk about this without acknowledging Joy Reid's personality.
Yeah, she's a big personality.
She's been very vocal in her criticism of, well, a lot of things, especially former President Trump and conservative policies. I mean, she definitely knows how to make headlines.
Absolutely. So her departure begs the question, is MSNBC trying to move away from that kind of outspoken, arguably polarizing commentary?
Right.
Are they looking to soften their image and maybe appeal to a wider audience, even if it means potentially alienating some of Reid's dedicated fan base?
It's a gamble, for sure. And they're not stopping there.
No, they're not.
They're replacing the ReidOut with a trio of new hosts: Simon Sanders Townsend, Alicia Menendez, and Michael Steele. What do you make of that lineup?
This new lineup really speaks volumes about the direction MSNBC might be taking.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Sanders Townsend brings experience from the political world, having worked with Vice President Kamala Harris.
Oh, right, yeah.
Menendez, a rising star in political journalism, will become the first Latina to host a primetime cable news show on MSNBC. And then you have Steele, a former RNC chair, known for his willingness to critique his own party.
Okay.
So it's a pretty diverse group, not just in terms of background, but also in terms of their perspectives.
What do you make of that?
It suggests MSNBC is aiming for more nuanced conversations, maybe even fostering healthy debate across the political spectrum. They're clearly trying to shake things up and bring in fresh perspectives.
Now, beyond primetime, there are even more changes afoot. Jen Psaki, the former White House press secretary, is seeing an expanded role with her successful weekend show Inside with Jen Psaki. And Alex Wagner is moving away from her dedicated primetime slot to become a correspondent.
It's clear that MSNBC, under the new network president, Rebecca Cutler, is undergoing a major overhaul. And we can't forget the impending separation from NBC Universal, which adds another layer of complexity to these changes.
Okay, so let's break down what this separation from NBC Universal could actually mean for MSNBC. What are the potential benefits and drawbacks for them?
Right.
Will this impact their budget resources or even how they make programming decisions?
Well, one of the major concerns is the potential loss of access to NBC News resources and infrastructure. There's anxiety among some MSNBC employees that this could lead to greater isolation for the network, fewer opportunities for collaboration, and a potential impact on their ability to produce high-quality programming.
It's definitely a lot for the network to navigate.
On the other hand, this could be a chance for MSNBC to truly forge its own path to develop a distinct identity within the cable news landscape.
Right.
They'll need to be resourceful, creative, and perhaps a bit bolder in their approach to thrive in this new environment. It's almost like they're being pushed to stand on their own 2 feet and prove themselves.
So we've got declining viewership, a major programming shakeup, a new president at the helm, and a looming separation from their parent company. That's a lot of moving pieces. Where do you think this leaves MSNBC? Do you think these changes are ultimately going to revitalize the network and draw in a wider audience? Or could this alienate their core viewers who tuned in for shows like The ReidOut?
That's the million-dollar question. It really is a high-stakes experiment playing out in real time.
And what about Joy Reid? What do you think's next for her?
Well, she hasn't publicly announced any future plans yet. Some speculate she might stay with MSNBC in a different capacity, perhaps as a contributor or commentator. Others believe she could seek opportunities elsewhere in the media landscape, maybe even launch her own platform.
She's a strong personality with a distinct voice, so I have a feeling we haven't heard the last of her.
I agree. Whatever she chooses to do, her next chapter will certainly be interesting to follow.
This whole situation at MSNBC has me thinking about the broader media landscape. Cable news has been around for decades, but now it's facing competition from online platforms, streaming services, and even social media. How do you think these changes at MSNBC reflect this evolving media landscape?
I think it highlights how cable news networks are trying to adapt to this changing world. They're experimenting with new formats, voices, and perspectives to stay relevant and attract viewers who have more choices than ever before.
Right, and it seems like they're trying to move away from the traditional partisan talking points and offer something that might appeal to those who are tired of the constant negativity and polarization we see so often in the media. They seem to be aiming for more nuanced discussions, which I find quite interesting.
That's a great point. And remember, MSNBC is beefing up its Washington bureau, focusing on domestic and international reporting.
Okay.
There are even rumors they're talking to potential new talent like Eugene Daniels from Politico and NYU law professor Melissa Murray.
It seems like they're pulling out all the stops. But how do you balance attracting a wider audience with the risk of alienating their core viewership? Traditionally, MSNBC has been known for its left-leaning perspective.
Yeah.
Could this shift away from figures like Joy Reid backfire?
It's definitely a delicate balancing act. It will be interesting to see how they navigate this new terrain and if their strategy ultimately pays off.
Well, this has been a fascinating discussion so far. It seems like MSNBC is at a pivotal moment, and it will be interesting to see how these changes play out, not only for the network, but potentially for the cable news industry as a whole.
Absolutely. There are a lot of challenges ahead, but also opportunities for MSNBC to redefine itself and its place in the media landscape.
This has been a great start to our deep dive into the MSNBC shakeup. We've uncovered a lot already, but there's still much more to explore. Join us for part 2, where we'll delve deeper into the potential consequences of these changes and what they could mean for the future of cable news.
It's interesting to think about what viewers want from cable news these days.
Yeah.
Are you tired of the partisan bickering?
I think so.
Are you looking for more in-depth analysis, or perhaps you're craving diverse perspectives? It seems like MSNBC is trying to address some of these desires with their current shakeup.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It feels like they're trying to cater to a more discerning viewer, someone who wants more than just headlines and hot takes.
Right, and it's not just about the content itself, but how it's presented. Are they going to move away from the shouting matches and panel debates that have become so common?
Right.
Could this be a shift towards a more thoughtful, nuanced approach to covering the news?
It's a gamble, for sure. Not everyone is going to be happy with this change in direction.
Exactly, and that brings us back to the question of MSNBC's core audience.
Yeah.
Will they embrace this shift towards a potentially less partisan, more discussion-based format? Or will they feel alienated by the departure of strong voices like Joy Reid, who resonated with a certain segment of viewers?
It's a tough line to walk.
It is.
They need to attract new viewers without losing the ones they already have.
Absolutely, and that's what makes this whole situation so fascinating. It's like a high-stakes experiment playing out in real time.
Right.
We're seeing a network try to reinvent itself amidst declining viewership, a changing media landscape, and a looming separation from its parent company.
And speaking of that separation from NBC Universal, how do you think that's going to play into all of this? We touched on the potential loss of resources and infrastructure, but what about their identity? Could this be a chance for MSNBC to redefine itself as a truly independent entity?
I think it has the potential to be incredibly liberating for them.
Really?
This could be their opportunity to break free from the perceived constraints of being tied to a larger, more traditional media organization.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing then?
Not at all.
Okay.
It could push them to be more innovative, more experimental, and ultimately more in tune with the evolving needs and desires of their viewers.
It's almost like they're being forced to stand on their own 2 feet and prove that they can not only survive, but thrive in this new environment.
Exactly. They'll need to be resourceful, creative, and maybe even a little bit daring to make it work.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the broader implications of these changes. What do you think this means for the future of cable news as a whole?
Well, I think it's a sign that the old way of doing things isn't working anymore. Cable news has been around for decades, but it's facing increasing competition from online platforms, streaming services, and social media. Viewers have more choices than ever before, and their habits are changing rapidly.
Right, and with the rise of misinformation and disinformation, it's becoming harder for viewers to know what to trust.
Absolutely.
How do networks like MSNBC adapt to this new reality?
They need to find ways to cut through the noise, to build trust with their audience, and to deliver accurate and insightful reporting that resonates with viewers. It's not just about delivering the news anymore, it's about providing context, analysis, and diverse perspectives.
So it's about helping viewers understand the why behind the news, not just the what.
Exactly. And that requires strong journalism, thoughtful commentary, and a willingness to engage in genuine dialogue, even with those who hold different views. It's about moving away from the us versus them mentality that has dominated cable news for so long, and fostering a more inclusive, nuanced approach to discussing the issues that matter most.
That's a powerful vision for the future of cable news, but do you think it's realistic?
I think it has to be. If cable news wants to remain relevant in this evolving media landscape, it needs to adapt and evolve along with it. The stakes are high, but the potential rewards are great.
This has been this truly eye-opening discussion. It's clear that MSNBC is at a crossroads, and their decisions will have a ripple effect throughout the media landscape. We've covered a lot of ground, from the shakeup itself to its potential impact on the network and the future of cable news as a whole.
And I think we've raised some important questions for our listeners to consider. What do you want from cable news? Are you satisfied with the status quo, or are you looking for something more?
Welcome back to KDM. We've been talking about all these changes at MSNBC, from Joy Reid leaving to that new lineup to the split from NBC Universal.
Right.
It feels like they're betting on a less is more approach, fewer partisan fireworks and more in-depth analysis. It makes you wonder, are they reading the room correctly? Do viewers actually want this kind of shift in cable news?
Well, I think we're seeing signs of fatigue everywhere. People are overwhelmed, by the constant barrage of information and the negativity, and they're looking for something more, something that's informative without being overwhelming.
Yeah.
Something that challenges them intellectually without resorting to shouting matches.
And this brings us to our final thought, something for you, our listener, to consider. What if this shakeup at MSNBC is a canary in the coal mine for the entire cable news industry?
Yeah. What if this signals a fundamental shift in how we consume news?
Right.
And engage in political discourse? Imagine a media landscape where networks prioritize nuanced conversations over sensationalism, where diverse voices are not just tokens, but actively shape the narrative.
It's a bold vision.
It is.
Almost utopian in a way, but maybe, just maybe, MSNBC is taking the first steps towards that vision. They're embracing diverse voices, they're signaling a move away from the constant outrage cycle, and they're betting on viewers who are hungry for something more substantial.
The question is, will it work? Will this new approach resonate with viewers, attract new audiences, and ultimately redefine what cable news can be? Or will it alienate their existing base and fail to capture the attention of those who have already tuned out?
It's a question we can't answer today, but it's definitely one worth pondering as we watch this story unfold, because the choices MSNBC makes, the successes or failures they encounter, could have a ripple effect on the entire media landscape.
Right, and ultimately it's up to us, the viewers, to decide what kind of media we want to support, what kind of conversations we want to engage in.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the MSNBC shakeup. It's been a fascinating exploration of not just one network's transformation, but potentially a glimpse into the future of news itself. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the KDM channel for more deep dives into the topics that matter.
We'll see you next time.
Until next time, keep asking questions, keep challenging the status quo, and keep those minds engaged.